The Grand Plaza Hotel stood like a golden palace in the heart of Manhattan, its marble floors gleaming under crystal chandeliers. Marcus Thompson adjusted his tie nervously as he walked through the lobby, his polished shoes clicking against the expensive floor. At 28, he was the youngest general manager the hotel had ever hired, and every day felt like he was walking on thin ice. The morning had started like any other Tuesday in October. Marcus arrived at 7 sharp, coffee in hand, ready to tackle the endless list of tasks that came with running one of New York's most exclusive hotels. The Grand Plaza wasn't just any hotel. It was where billionaires stayed when they visited the city, where movie stars hid from paparazzi, and where business deals worth millions were made over breakfast. Marcus had worked his way up from being a simple desk clerk 5 years ago. He remembered those early days when he would watch the previous manager, Mr. Richardson, glide effortlessly between guests, speaking multiple languages and handling every crisis with calm confidence. When Richardson retired last month, the hotel owners had shocked everyone by promoting Marcus instead of hiring someone with more experience. The pressure was enormous. Every guest expected perfection, and every mistake could cost the hotel its reputation. Marcus spent his nights studying hotel management books and practicing phrases in different languages, trying to prepare for situations he might face. But nothing could have prepared him for what was about to happen. Elena Rodriguez had been working as a maid at the Grand Plaza for 3 years. She was quiet, hardworking, and invisible to most people who passed her in the hallways. Every morning, at 6, she would arrive through the staff entrance, put on her uniform, and begin her rounds of cleaning rooms on the upper floors, where the most important guests stayed. Elena had grown up in a small town in Mexico, where her grandmother had run a boarding house for travelers. From a young age, she had helped clean rooms and serve meals to guests from all over the world. Her grandmother always told her that no matter what job you do, you should do it with pride and respect for others. When Elena was 18, she moved to the United States with dreams of becoming a teacher. She enrolled in community college and worked part-time jobs to pay for her education. But when her mother became sick back home, Elena had to send most of her money to help with medical bills. Her dreams of finishing college had to wait. The job at the Grand Plaza was better than most cleaning jobs she had worked before. The pay was decent, and the hotel provided health insurance. Most importantly, it was stable work. Elena had learned to be grateful for what she had, even though she sometimes felt invisible as she moved through the hotel's luxurious spaces. What most people didn't know about Elena was that she had always been gifted with languages. Growing up near the border, she had learned English from tourists who stayed at her grandmother's boarding house. In college, she had studied French and Italian, dreaming of one day traveling to Europe. She also spoke some German and Portuguese, picking up phrases from the diverse group of international students at her school. But Elena kept her language skills to herself at work. She had learned that being too smart or too capable sometimes made bosses uncomfortable. It was easier to blend in, do her job well, and avoid drawing attention to herself. She cleaned rooms, changed sheets, and emptied trash cans while listening to guests speak in different languages, understanding more than they ever imagined. The trouble started when Monsieur Jacques Dubois arrived at the hotel on that Tuesday morning. He was one of France's wealthiest businessmen, known for his luxury fashion empire and his difficult personality. Dubois owned stores in Paris, London, and Tokyo, and he was in New York to finalize a deal that would bring his brand to American shopping malls. Dubois had stayed at the Grand Plaza twice before, and both times had been challenging experiences for the staff. He was demanding, impatient, and had very specific requirements for everything from the thread count of his sheets to the temperature of his breakfast coffee. He also refused to speak English, insisting that in a hotel of this caliber, someone should be able to communicate with him in French. Marcus knew about Dubois' reputation from the detailed notes left by Mr. Richardson. The previous manager had handled the French businessman with the help of a translator who was brought in specially for his visits. But that translator had retired, along with Richardson, and Marcus hadn't yet found a replacement. When the call came from the front desk that Monsieur Dubois was checking in and asking to speak with the manager, Marcus felt his stomach tighten. He had studied some basic French phrases, but he knew it wouldn't be enough for a serious business conversation with someone as important as Dubois. Marcus straightened his jacket and walked to the lobby, where he could see Dubois standing near the reception desk. The Frenchman was a tall, elegant man in his 60s, wearing an expensive suit and carrying a leather briefcase. He was speaking rapidly to the desk clerk, who was nodding nervously and clearly not understanding a word. As Marcus approached, he heard Dubois' voice rising with frustration. The businessman was gesturing with his hands and speaking faster, his tone becoming more agitated by the moment. Other guests in the lobby were starting to notice the commotion, and Marcus knew he had to act quickly to prevent a scene. The desk clerk looked relieved when she saw Marcus approaching. She had been trying to explain that the manager was coming, but her limited French vocabulary wasn't helping the situation. Marcus took a deep breath, put on his most professional smile, and prepared to face one of the most challenging moments of his young career as a hotel manager. Dubois turned toward Marcus with an expectant look, clearly assuming that the general manager of such a prestigious hotel would be able to communicate with him properly. Marcus felt the weight of everyone's eyes on him, the desk staff, other guests, and most importantly, this powerful businessman whose satisfaction could make or break the hotel's relationship with international luxury travelers. Marcus approached Monsieur Dubois with as much confidence as he could manage, extending his hand for a handshake. The French businessman looked at him with sharp, evaluating eyes that seemed to see right through any pretense. Marcus had practiced his greeting in French dozens of times in his office, but now his mind went blank. "Bonjour, Monsieur Dubois," Marcus said, his pronunciation awkward and uncertain. "Je suis, le manager, Marcus Thompson." Dubois' expression immediately showed disappointment. He responded with a rapid stream of French that Marcus couldn't follow at all. The businessman was clearly explaining something important about his reservation, his room requirements, and his schedule for the week. His tone suggested urgency and the expectation of immediate understanding. Marcus felt sweat forming on his forehead despite the air conditioning. He tried to catch familiar words in Dubois' speech, but the businessman spoke too quickly and used vocabulary far beyond Marcus's basic study materials. The hotel lobby suddenly felt very public, with other guests glancing over at the conversation. Je suis désolé," Marcus stammered, trying to apologize in French. "Could you please, plus lentement," more slowly. Dubois stopped speaking abruptly and stared at Marcus with growing irritation. He said something that sounded like a question, and Marcus could only offer a helpless shrug. The businessman then launched into what was clearly a complaint, his voice rising slightly. Marcus caught the word incompetent and felt his face flush with embarrassment. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. Other guests were now openly watching the scene, and Marcus could see his staff members looking concerned. This was exactly the kind of incident that could damage the hotel's reputation and cost him his job. Dubois was one of their most important international clients, and Marcus was failing at the most basic level of customer service. Elena was on the 15th floor, cleaning the presidential suite where Dubois would be staying. She had prepared the room according to the detailed notes in his file: Egyptian cotton sheets, French mineral water, specific flowers arranged in crystal vases, and newspapers from Paris that had been delivered that morning. She took pride in getting every detail perfect. As she was adjusting the curtains to let in just the right amount of natural light, Elena heard her supervisor's voice crackling through the radio all housekeeping staff carried. "Elena, we need you downstairs in the lobby immediately. Bring your cleaning cart and look busy, but get down there fast." Elena was puzzled by the unusual request. She rarely worked in the public areas of the hotel, and certainly never during peak morning hours when important guests were checking in, but she didn't question orders. She quickly finished adjusting the flowers and headed for the service elevator. When the elevator doors opened on the lobby level, Elena immediately heard raised voices speaking French. She recognized the language instantly and felt a familiar flutter of interest. It had been months since she had heard her second favorite language spoken with such fluency and passion. She pushed her cart toward the main lobby, staying near the walls as she had been trained to do. Hotel staff were supposed to be invisible, especially during guest interactions. But as she got closer, she realized what was happening. She could see Marcus looking stressed and overwhelmed, trying to communicate with an elegantly dressed older gentleman who was clearly frustrated. Elena understood every word the French guest was saying. He was complaining about the lack of professional service, explaining that he had important meetings scheduled and needed to discuss special arrangements for his business associates, who would be joining him later that week. He was also asking about the availability of a private dining room and expressing concerns about security arrangements for some valuable items he needed to store in the hotel safe. Marcus, meanwhile, was struggling to respond with basic phrases that barely addressed any of the man's concerns. Elena could see the panic in the young manager's eyes. She had always liked Marcus. He was kind to the staff and treated everyone with respect, unlike some managers she had worked under in other jobs. Elena continued to dust the same table for much longer than necessary, listening to the conversation and feeling increasingly sorry for both men. The French guest wasn't being cruel, he was simply frustrated that he couldn't communicate his legitimate needs. Marcus was trying his best, but his limited French was only making the situation worse. The conversation continued for several more minutes, with neither man able to understand the other effectively. Elena watched as Marcus attempted to call someone on his phone, probably trying to reach a translator, but apparently wasn't successful. The French guest was now tapping his foot impatiently and checking his expensive watch. Other hotel staff had gathered at a respectful distance, unsure how to help. The concierge spoke some Italian and Spanish, but no French. The head of security knew German and Russian, but that wouldn't help either. Elena realized that she might be the only person in the hotel at that moment who could bridge the communication gap. But she hesitated. Speaking up would mean revealing her language skills, which she had kept hidden for so long. It would change how people saw her and might create expectations she wasn't sure she was ready to meet. She was just a maid, not a translator or customer service representative. Elena looked at Marcus again and saw genuine distress on his face. He was so young for such a responsible position, and she knew how hard he had worked to earn the promotion. This incident could seriously damage his career and the hotel's reputation. The French guest was clearly an important person, and first impressions in the luxury hotel business were everything. She thought about her grandmother, who had taught her that when you have the ability to help someone, especially when no one else can, you have a responsibility to act. Her grandmother had always said that kindness and helpfulness were more important than social positions or job titles. Elena made her decision. She straightened her shoulders, took a deep breath, and quietly approached the two men. Her heart was beating fast, but she knew she couldn't just stand by and watch this situation get worse when she had the power to help solve it. Elena approached the two men with quiet steps, her cleaning cart forgotten behind her. She could feel her heart pounding, but she kept her expression calm and professional. This was a moment that could change everything for her at the hotel, but she couldn't let Marcus fail when she had the ability to help. "Excusez-moi," Elena said softly, her voice clear and confident in perfect French. Both men turned toward her with surprise. "Monsieur, je peux vous aider si vous le souhaitez." She was offering to help if the guest wished. Dubois' face immediately brightened with relief and surprise. Here was someone who could finally understand him properly. He responded quickly in French, explaining his situation and his frustration with the communication problems he had been experiencing. Marcus stared at Elena in complete shock. He had worked alongside her for 3 years, had greeted her countless times in the hallways, and had never heard her speak anything but basic English. Now she was conversing fluently in French with one of their most important guests, her pronunciation perfect and her manner completely professional. Elena listened carefully to Dubois' concerns, nodding appropriately and asking clarifying questions in French. Then she turned to Marcus and, switching to English, began to translate everything the businessman had said. "Mr. Thompson," Elena said respectfully, "Monsieur Dubois is concerned about several arrangements for his stay. He has 3. Business associates arriving tomorrow who will need adjoining rooms on the same floor. He needs to reserve the private dining room for Thursday evening for 8 people, and he has some valuable documents that require special security arrangements in the hotel safe. Marcus felt a wave of relief wash over him. Finally, he understood what the guest needed, and these were all requests he could easily handle. "Yes, of course," he said, then looked at Elena gratefully. "Could you please tell Monsieur Dubois that we can absolutely accommodate all of these requests?" Elena turned back to Dubois and smoothly translated Marcus's response, adding some additional polite phrases that showed proper respect for an important guest. Dubois smiled for the first time since arriving at the hotel and responded with obvious satisfaction. "He says he's very pleased that we can help him," Elena translated. "He also wants to know if we can arrange for French newspapers to be delivered to his room each morning. And he needs the business center to be available to him at 6 in the morning before his first meeting." The conversation continued for another 10 minutes with Elena serving as a perfect bridge between the two men. She translated not just words but also cultural nuances and business courtesies that made Dubois feel properly welcomed and respected. Marcus found himself able to offer the kind of personalized service that the Grand Plaza was known for, thanks to Elena's linguistic skills. As they spoke, Marcus began to notice things about Elena that he had never seen before. Her posture was confident and poised as she switched between languages. Her vocabulary was sophisticated, and she seemed to understand not just the words but the business context of Dubois' requests. This was clearly not someone who had just picked up casual French phrases. When all of Dubois' immediate concerns had been addressed, he turned to Elena and spoke to her directly in French for several moments. Elena listened with a slight smile, responded appropriately, then translated for Marcus. "Monsieur Dubois says he is very impressed with the hotel's service," she said. "He wants to compliment the management for having such capable staff members. He says it shows the hotel's commitment to excellence." Dubois shook hands with Marcus, this time with genuine warmth, and nodded respectfully to Elena before heading to the elevator with a bellhop who would show him to his suite. The crisis was over, and Marcus felt like he could finally breathe normally again. As soon as Dubois disappeared into the elevator, Marcus turned to Elena with amazement and gratitude written all over his face. "Elena, I had no idea you spoke French. You probably just saved my job and the hotel's relationship with one of our most important clients." Elena smiled modestly, suddenly feeling shy again now that the emergency was over. "I learned it in college," she said simply. "I didn't want to make a big deal about it." "Are there other languages you speak?" Marcus asked, still processing this revelation about someone he thought he knew. "A few," Elena admitted. "Italian, Portuguese, some German. I've always been interested in languages." Marcus shook his head in wonder. Here he had been struggling with basic phrases from language learning apps, while one of the most valuable employees in the hotel had been quietly cleaning rooms upstairs. The irony wasn't lost on him. "Elena, we need to talk," Marcus said seriously. "What you just did was incredible, but I think there might be opportunities for you here that we've never discussed. Would you be willing to meet with me later today?" Elena felt a flutter of excitement mixed with nervousness. She had been content with her quiet job, but maybe it was time for things to change. "Yes, Mr. Thompson, I'd be happy to talk with you." As Elena returned to her cleaning cart, she noticed that several staff members had witnessed the entire interaction. Word would spread quickly through the hotel about what had happened. Her days of being invisible were probably over, but maybe that wasn't such a bad thing after all. Marcus watched her go, his mind already racing with possibilities. The Grand Plaza regularly hosted international guests who spoke dozens of different languages. Having someone on staff with Elena's linguistic abilities could transform how they served their most important clients. But first, he needed to understand how this remarkable woman had ended up cleaning rooms when she could have been doing so much more. The rest of Elena's morning passed in a strange blur. Word of what had happened in the lobby spread through the hotel staff like wildfire. In the employee break room, her co-workers looked at her with new curiosity and respect. Maria, who worked in laundry, approached her during lunch with wide eyes. Elena, is it true you speak French like a native? Maria asked in Spanish. Carmen from the front desk said you saved the manager's job this morning. Elena felt uncomfortable with the attention. She had always preferred to keep her head down and do her work quietly. I just helped with a translation, she said modestly. It wasn't that big of a deal. But even as she said it, Elena knew that everything had changed. She had stepped out of the shadows, and there was no going back to being invisible. Throughout the afternoon, she noticed other staff members pointing her out to each other, and even some of the front desk supervisors nodded to her with newfound respect. Marcus spent the afternoon researching Elena's employment file and thinking about the morning's events. Her file was surprisingly thin for someone who had worked at the hotel for 3 years. It showed that she had been hired as a housekeeper, had perfect attendance, never complained, and received good performance reviews. But there was no mention of her education or language skills. He also spent time looking into the hotel's needs for language services. The Grand Plaza hosted guests from all over the world, and they frequently had to bring in expensive translators for important clients. Last year alone, they had spent over $50,000 on translation services. If Elena could handle even half of those situations, it would save the hotel significant money while providing better service to guests. At 4 p.m, Marcus called Elena's supervisor and asked her to send Elena to his office. When Nilipai, Elena knocked on his door. Marcus felt a strange nervousness. This morning, he had been a manager talking to a housekeeping employee. Now he felt like he was meeting Elena for the first time. Please sit down, Marcus said, gesturing to the chairs in front of his desk. Elena sat carefully, her posture straight and attentive. She was still wearing her housekeeping uniform, but something about her seemed different. Maybe it was the confidence she had shown that morning, or maybe Marcus was just seeing her clearly for the first time. Elena, I want to start by thanking you again for this morning, Marcus began. What you did was extraordinary, but I have to ask, why didn't you ever mention that you speak multiple languages? Those are exactly the kind of skills we need here at the Grand Plaza. Elena was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. In my experience, Mr. Thompson, sometimes it's better not to stand out too much. I've learned that some people get uncomfortable when they think you're smarter than they expected you to be. Marcus felt a pang of guilt, realizing that Elena had probably encountered discrimination or dismissiveness in previous jobs. That's a shame, he said sincerely. Intelligence and skills should be celebrated, not hidden. Can you tell me about your background, your education? Elena told him about growing up in Mexico, helping in her grandmother's boarding house and learning languages from the international travelers who stayed there. She explained how she had come to the United States to study education, but had to leave college when her mother became ill and needed financial support. I always planned to go back to school, Elena said, but life has a way of changing your plans. The job here is good, stable. I didn't want to risk losing it by asking for something different. Marcus listened with growing respect for Elena's story. Here was someone who had overcome significant challenges, supported her family, and continued to better herself despite setbacks. Elena, what if I told you that there might be opportunities for you here that would use your language skills? Would you be interested in exploring that? Elena's eyes lit up with interest, though she tried to contain her excitement. What kind of opportunities? Well, we frequently need translators for our international guests, Marcus explained. We could create a position that combines some of your current responsibilities with language services. It would mean a significant pay increase and different duties. You'd be working directly with our most important guests. Elena felt her heart racing. This was the kind of opportunity she had dreamed about but never expected to receive. I would be very interested in that, Mr. Thompson, but I want to make sure I could handle the responsibility. Working with important business people is very different from cleaning their rooms. Marcus smiled at her honesty. I saw how you handled Monsieur Dubois this morning. You were professional, confident, and you understood exactly what kind of service he expected. I think you'd do very well. They spent the next hour discussing possibilities. Marcus explained that the hotel often hosted international conferences, business meetings, and diplomatic events where language services were crucial. Elena told him about her different levels of fluency in various languages and her experience with different cultures. "There's one thing I need to be honest about," Elena said toward the end of their conversation. "I don't have formal certification. As a translator, my language skills come from study and practice, not from official training programs." "Your performance this morning showed me that your skills are real," Marcus replied. "We can arrange for you to take proficiency tests if needed, and we could provide additional training. The most important thing is that you have the natural ability and the right attitude for working with high-level guests." As Elena left Marcus's office, she felt like she was walking on air. After 3 years of feeling invisible, she was finally being seen and valued for her true capabilities. She thought about calling her mother that evening to share the good news, imagining how proud her grandmother would have been. Marcus, meanwhile, was already making plans. He would need to get approval from the hotel owners for creating a new position, but he was confident they would see the value. Elena's language skills could set the Grand Plaza apart from other luxury hotels in the city. That evening, Elena went home to her small apartment and looked at herself in the mirror. Tomorrow, she would still be Elena Rodriguez, but her future looked completely different than it had that morning. She had taken a risk by speaking up, and it was already changing her life in ways she had never imagined possible. The phone rang, and Elena saw that it was her mother calling from Mexico. As they talked in Spanish about their day, Elena decided to wait before telling her about the new opportunity. She wanted to make sure everything was official first, but she couldn't help smiling as she imagined how surprised and proud her family would be when she told them that their quiet Elena was about to become one of the Grand Plaza Hotel's most valuable employees. The next morning, Elena arrived at work with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She had barely slept, her mind racing with possibilities and worries about the changes that might be coming. As she walked through the staff entrance, she wondered if other employees would treat her differently now that word had spread about her language skills. Marcus had spent the evening preparing a proposal for the hotel owners. He researched similar positions at other luxury hotels and calculated the potential savings from having in-house language services. The numbers were compelling. Elena's salary increase would be offset by reduced translator costs within the first 6 months. At 9 in the morning, Marcus received an urgent call from the front desk. "Mr. Thompson, we have a situation with the Japanese delegation in the conference room. They're here for the International Business Summit, and there seems to be a major misunderstanding about the contract terms. The translator we hired called in sick and we can't reach the backup service." Marcus felt his stomach drop. The Japanese Business Summit was one of the hotel's most important events of the year, bringing together executives from major corporations for 3 days of meetings and negotiations. A translation problem could jeopardize deals worth millions of dollars. "I'll be right there," Marcus said, already knowing what he needed to do. He called Elena's supervisor and asked her to send Elena to the conference room immediately. Elena was cleaning a room on the 10th floor when her radio crackled with the urgent message. She had studied Japanese for 2 years in college and had practiced with Japanese exchange students, but she wasn't as fluent as she was in French or Italian. Still, she might be able to help with basic communication until a professional translator could be found. When Elena arrived at the conference room, she found a tense scene. 12 Japanese executives sat on one side of a long table, while 6 American business representatives sat on the other side. Both groups looked frustrated and confused. Marcus was standing at the head of the table, looking desperate. The lead, Japanese executive Mr. Tanaka, was speaking in rapid Japanese to his colleagues, clearly upset about something. The American team leader was trying to explain something in English, but his words were falling on uncomprehending ears. The atmosphere in the room was growing more strained by the minute. Marcus looked relieved when he saw Elena enter the room. "Elena, thank goodness you're here. We have a major communication breakdown and the professional translator is unavailable. Do you speak any Japanese?" Elena took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everyone's expectations. "Some," she said. "Honestly, I studied it in college, but I'm not as fluent as I am in other languages. I can try to help with basic communication, She approached Mr. Tanaka respectfully and greeted him in Japanese. His face showed surprise and then appreciation that someone was making an effort to communicate in his language. Elena's pronunciation wasn't perfect, but it was clear that she understood the basics of respectful Japanese communication. Mr. Tanaka spoke to her slowly, using simpler vocabulary when he saw her concentration. Elena listened carefully, catching the key points of his concern. The problem, she realized, was about timing and delivery schedules. The Japanese company thought they were agreeing to a 6-month timeline, while the American company was proposing 18 months. Elena turned to the American team and explained the misunderstanding in English. Mr. Tanaka's company believes they agreed to deliver their products within 6 months, but you're asking for an 18-month development schedule. He's concerned that this major difference wasn't clearly communicated. The American team leader looked relieved to finally understand the problem. "Oh, there must be an error in our translated documents," he said. "We definitely need 18 months for proper development and testing. 6 months would be impossible for a project of this scope." Elena carefully translated this back to Mr. Tanaka in Japanese, using formal business language as best she could. She could see understanding dawn on his face, followed by disappointment. He spoke to his colleagues briefly, then turned back to Elena. "He says that 6 months was very important for their company's launch schedule," Elena translated. "But he wants to know if there might be a way to do a partial delivery in 6 months, with the complete project finished in 18 months. For the next hour, Elena served as a bridge between the two groups, helping them explore compromise solutions. Her Japanese wasn't perfect, and sometimes she had to ask for clarification or use simpler words, but she was able to keep the conversation moving forward. More importantly, her respectful approach and obvious effort to understand both cultures helped maintain goodwill between the parties. During a break in the negotiations, Mr. Tanaka approached Elena privately. In careful English mixed with some Japanese phrases, he thanked her for her help. "Your Japanese is good," he said, with a slight bow. "You understand respect, which is very important. Many translators know words but not culture." Elena felt proud of his compliment. She had always believed that learning a language meant learning about the people who spoke it, not just memorizing vocabulary and grammar rules. When the professional translator finally arrived 2 hours later, the foundation for an agreement had already been laid. The Japanese and American teams had found a middle ground, a partial delivery in 8 months with full completion in 16 months. Both sides seemed satisfied with the compromise. As the meeting concluded successfully, Marcus felt a profound sense of gratitude and amazement. Elena had once again stepped in during a crisis and helped save a crucial business relationship. Her language skills, combined with her cultural sensitivity and natural diplomacy, made her invaluable. After the Japanese delegation left, Marcus asked Elena to join him in his office. "Elena, what you did today was remarkable. You prevented a major business deal from falling apart, and you did it with languages you described as just some Japanese. I'm more convinced than ever that we need to formalize a new role for you here." Elena smiled, feeling more confident about her abilities than she had in years. "Mr. Thompson, I have to admit that this kind of work is much more interesting than cleaning rooms. I feel like I'm actually using my education and skills to help people." "Good," Marcus said, "because I've prepared a formal proposal for the hotel owners to create a new position, guest relations and language services coordinator. It would mean a 40% salary increase, your own office, and the opportunity to work with our most distinguished international guests." Elena felt tears of joy forming in her eyes. Just 2 days ago, she had been invisible, pushing a cleaning cart through hotel hallways. Now she was being offered a career opportunity that would use her education and respect her abilities. "I would be honored to accept that position," Elena said with dignity. 6 months later, Elena sat in her new office on the 3rd floor of the Grand Plaza Hotel, reviewing the schedule for the upcoming International Cultural Festival. Her office was small but elegant, with a mahogany desk, comfortable chairs for meetings with guests, and a window overlooking Central Park. On her desk sat business cards that read, "Elena Rodriguez, Guest Relations and Language Services Coordinator," in gold lettering. The transformation in Elena's life had been remarkable. The hotel owners had approved Marcus's proposal immediately after hearing about her success with both Monsieur Dubois and the Japanese business delegation. Within 2 weeks, Elena had moved from the housekeeping department to her new role, complete. With professional wardrobe allowance and her own business cards, Elena's days were now filled with interesting challenges. She had helped Italian movie producers negotiate filming locations in the city, assisted German pharmaceutical executives with technical presentations, and even helped a Portuguese ambassador's wife plan a charity gala. Each interaction taught her something new about business, diplomacy, and human nature. The Grand Plaza had quickly gained a reputation among international travelers for exceptional multilingual service. Word had spread through the luxury hotel network that the Grand Plaza could communicate fluently with guests in French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, German, and Japanese. Bookings from international clients had increased by 30% since Elena started her new position. Marcus had also benefited from Elena's success. His handling of the crisis with Monsieur Dubois and his decision to recognize and promote Elena's talents had impressed the hotel owners. They now saw him as a manager who could identify potential in his employees and think creatively about solving problems. His own career prospects had improved significantly. On this particular afternoon, Elena was preparing for the arrival of a Russian cultural delegation who would be staying at the hotel for a week. She had been studying basic Russian phrases, but she knew she would need to bring in a professional translator for complex discussions. The difference was that now she could coordinate these services effectively and ensure smooth communication from the moment guests arrived. Elena's phone rang and she answered in her professional manner. Guest Relations, Elena Rodriguez speaking. Miss Rodriguez, this is the front desk. We have Senor Martinez from the Spanish Ministry of Culture checking in. He specifically requested to speak with you about arrangements for tomorrow's press conference. I'll be right down, Elena replied, feeling the familiar thrill of being needed and valued. She gathered her notebook and headed to the elevator, thinking about how different this felt from her housekeeping days when she took the service elevator and tried to remain invisible. In the lobby, Elena greeted Senor Martinez in perfect Spanish, immediately putting him at ease. They discussed the logistics for his press conference, including simultaneous translation equipment, seating arrangements for international journalists, and coordination with the hotel's catering team for a reception afterward. As they spoke, Elena noticed Monsieur Dubois approaching the front desk. He had returned to New York several times since their first meeting, and each visit had gone smoothly thanks to Elena's assistance. He spotted her across the lobby and walked over with a smile. Mademoiselle Rodriguez, Dubois said warmly in French. How wonderful to see you again. I was hoping you would be available to assist with some special arrangements. Elena excused herself politely from Senor Martinez and greeted Dubois with professional courtesy. Over the months, she had learned that he appreciated both excellent service and personal recognition. Monsieur Dubois, welcome back to the Grand Plaza. How may I help you today? Dubois explained that he was bringing his daughter to New York for her graduation from Columbia University, and he wanted to arrange a special celebration dinner at the hotel. He also needed help coordinating with some American business partners who would be joining them, including translation during their business discussions. As Elena took notes and asked clarifying questions in fluent French, she couldn't help but remember that first morning when Marcus had struggled helplessly to communicate with this same man. Now Dubois specifically requested her services whenever he visited New York, and he had even recommended the Grand Plaza to other French business executives because of the exceptional linguistic support. After finishing with Dubois, Elena returned to her office to coordinate the various arrangements. She called the hotel's private dining coordinator, arranged for a bilingual menu to be prepared, and scheduled time to assist with the business meeting translations. These were exactly the kinds of complex, high-level tasks she had dreamed of handling when she was studying in college. Later that afternoon, Marcus stopped by Elena's office with a cup of coffee and a satisfied smile. I just got off the phone with the hotel ownership group, he said. They want me to tell you that client satisfaction scores for international guests have reached an all-time high since you started this position. They're also asking if you'd be interested in training other hotel staff in basic multilingual customer service. Elena felt a surge of pride and accomplishment. I would love to do that, Mr. Thompson. I think everyone on the frontline staff should know at least basic greetings and polite phrases in several languages. There's something else, Marcus continued. The ownership group is opening a new luxury hotel in Miami next year, and they want to know if you'd be interested in heading up their international guest services department there. It would be a significant promotion with a much larger staff and broader responsibilities. Elena was quiet for a moment, considering the offer. 6 months ago, she would never have imagined having choices like this. It's an incredible opportunity, she said thoughtfully. Can I have some time to think about it? Of course, Marcus replied. But Elena, I want you to know that whatever you decide, you've already changed this hotel for the better. You've also changed how I think about recognizing talent in unexpected places. That evening, Elena called her mother in Mexico to tell her about the promotion opportunity. Her mother listened with joy and amazement as Elena described her transformation from housekeeper to department head candidate. Mija, her mother said, using the affectionate Spanish term. Your grandmother always said that when you help others with a generous heart, the universe finds ways to help you too. You helped that young manager and the French gentleman, and look how it has opened doors for you. Elena smiled, remembering her grandmother's wisdom about kindness and service. Mama, I think I want to take the Miami position. It feels like the right time to take on something bigger. As Elena hung up the phone, she reflected on the unexpected journey that had brought her to this point. A simple act of kindness and courage in the hotel lobby had revealed her hidden talents and changed the course of her life. She had learned that sometimes the most important career moves come not from ambitious planning, but from being willing to step forward and help when help is needed. The next morning, Elena walked into Marcus's office with her decision. Mr. Thompson, I'd like to accept the Miami position, and I have an idea for my replacement here. Maria from housekeeping speaks excellent Italian and Portuguese. I think she might surprise you the same way I surprised you. Marcus laughed, realizing that Elena had learned one of the most important lessons of good management. Always be looking for hidden talent in unexpected places. I'll talk to Maria this week, he promised. As Elena began planning for her move to Miami and her new role as International Guest Services Director, she knew that her grandmother had been right. When you use your gifts to help others, life has a way of opening doors you never knew existed. Her journey from invisible maid to hotel executive had begun with a moment of courage in the Grand Plaza lobby, and now she was ready for whatever challenges and opportunities lay ahead.